All the evil of the world comes from the libido of belonging. I prefer to say it comes from the libido of truth. Knowledge is the most fragile part of us, yet the one part we mistake for our core. Belonging is never merely social, it is epistemopathic. The community we claim is the community we imagine ourselves knowing and known by. To belong is to assert that something is true, a tradition, a symbol, a we. The ceremonies that bind affiliation rely on this performative truth effect. The felt truth of belonging is always a projection. The subject performs community to conjure community. Thus, the first axiom, all belonging is a speculation about knowledge. All communities are epistemic fictions stabilized by shared fantasies. Belonging is the theological residue of truth, a secular faith. The libido of truth is the Promethean technique of the psyche, a fire that burns for the certainty it cannot possess. We rarely inquire into what it is to know because knowing feels immediate. Knowledge arrives already delivered without request, like a thought that occurs. Knowledge pops up without process, a magical epiphany that conceals its own origins. This is the primal epistemopathy. We assume we know far more than we do. Epistemopathy thrives in this surplus of confidence, this fantasy of an intact inner archive. The will to know is the will to feel one's knowing, and that feeling over centuries has substituted for investigation into knowledge itself. The will to know is the will to feel one's knowing, and that feeling over centuries has substituted for investigation into knowing and knowledge itself. Each of us projects ourselves. Each of us projects onto ourselves what Lacan calls the suppose suave. The internal avatar supposedly knows what we think we know. The internal knower is a phantasmatic machine, a librarian with no library, a server with no stored files, an archive that exists only as an interface. The subject does not know what it knows what it presumes itself to know. Thus, knowledge is a prosthetic device worn by the psyche, a badge of competence affixed to an unexamined interior. We fantasize an inner repository because we cannot bear the idea that knowing might be nothing more than a momentary event in consciousness. There is no collective subject of knowing, and yet all knowing feels collective. Knowledge seeks an audience like a joke. It is incomplete unless shared. Society exists only as the fantasy that its members have of it. Collective knowing, like collective memory, requires a mythic bearer. Rituals, institutions, and ceremonies are not expressions of latent structures, but devices invented to simulate them. Thus, the social is a phantasm sustained by synchronized epistemopathies, a communal hallucination of shared understandings. Knowing produces not only anxiety but pleasure, a hedonic recursion into which we come to enjoy our own capacity for attention. Selective attention becomes a reward system of consciousness. We desire knowing because knowing intensifies desire. Knowledge mediates between conservation and adventure, allowing the world to remain stable enough to trust and unstable enough to explore. Thus, epistemic pleasure is the infantile echo of the mother's assurance, a cognitive caress that enables novelty. But this pleasure can invert into dread, the fear of losing knowledge, the agony of the empty mind, the terror of unemployment as the void of unthinkability. Death is unknowable, but its unknowability saturates all knowing. Knowledge is a being toward limit. We cannot know death, yet we know that we cannot know it. Thus, death becomes the central epistemic object of life. Every act of knowing is shadowed by the knowledge that it will end. Mortality stains all cognition. Writing is the only imperfect prosthesis against this, a technology for exteriorizing what can never truly be externalized. Knowing is gnawing the self-consuming what it cannot keep. Pseudo-knowledge is not a defect, but the normal mode of cognition. We live by conjecture and probability. All knowledge requires props, rituals, interrogations, archives, credentials. Knowing is a stagecraft. We play at knowing, ritualizing the gestures that establish certainty and mistake the gestures for knowledge itself. Literature discovers this first, that poetic statements are pseudo-statements, vehicles for organizing feeling rather than conveying fact. But the modern world, the pseudo-statements migrates everywhere, into politics, science worship, identity, sexual self-definition, machine logic. Thus, the line between true knowing and pseudo-knowing is not ontological, but affective. Knowledge is whatever feels like knowledge. The modern collective archive, the cloud, the database, the infinite look-up replaces divinity with machine omniscience. We offload our epistemic burdens onto external systems that promise certainty while masking our own cognitive fragility. The machine god is the new subject supposed to know, not internal but infrastructural. The machines know nothing, they only store, retrieve, and recombine. The fantasy of machine knowledge is a human epistemopathy projected onto circuitry. Thus, the final mytho-technical axiom: we create machines to know for us. We create machines to know for us that we may continue pretending to know ourselves. Knowledge is the fantasy that stabilizes both the individual and the collective. Without fantasy, knowing collapses into mere reaction. The libido of belonging, the libido of truth, epistemopathy, collective memory, machine archives, these are variations of the same drive. The desire to believe that the world can be known and that we are the ones who knew it.